What? What happened? Intel used to be the biggest, most important chip company on planet Earth, like not close, and now they're the company everyone writes, can they turn it around articles about. So today we're explaining exactly why that happened. Like you're five. No jargon, no confusing spec sheets, just the actual story of how the king of the chip world basically tripped over its own crown. Here's the whole thing in one sentence before we dig in. Intel said no to a phone, said no to admitting it had a manufacturing problem, and then said no to an AI boom that made its biggest rival richer than God. 3 no's, that's it. That's the tragedy. But the details are way more fun than that, so let's actually walk through it. Chapter 1. The phone they said no to. Picture it's 2006. Intel is basically the only name that matters in computer chips. Every beige box, every laptop, practically every serious computer on Earth has an Intel sticker on it. Life is good, margins are fat, and then this small computer company called Apple shows up and says, hey, we're building this new thing, a phone that's basically a tiny computer. Can you build us a chip for it? And Intel looked at this potentially world-changing device and said, essentially, nah, we're good. The margins on cheap little phone chips just weren't juicy enough. So Intel's CEO at the time politely turned Apple down. Apple, being Apple, just shrugged and went and built the iPhone with a chip based on ARM designs instead. Now here's the kid-friendly version of why that mattered so much. Imagine you own the only ice cream truck in town and someone asks you to also sell popsicles because popsicles are about to become the biggest thing in the neighborhood. You say no because popsicles have a smaller profit margin than your fancy sundaes. Then popsicles become a billion-dollar industry. Every kid in America wants one. And you're standing there with your ice cream truck wondering what happened. That's Intel and the iPhone. Intel spent over $10 billion later trying to force its way back into phone chips, and it just never worked. And the company finally gave up on the smartphone chip business in 2016, watching ARM chips take over basically every phone on Earth. Today, smartphones make up a massive chunk of what keeps Intel's biggest manufacturing rival in business. And Intel gets $0 from any of it. Zero. Okay, so strike one. Painful, but a company can survive missing one market. What actually put Intel in the hospital was strike 2. Chapter 2, the number that wouldn't shrink. So chips get better over time because engineers keep shrinking the tiny switches inside them called transistors. Smaller switches, more of them fit on a chip. Chip gets faster and uses less power. That's basically the entire game in this industry. And for decades, Intel was just flat out the best in the world at doing this shrinking. Then Intel tried to jump from a size called 14 nanometers down to 10 nanometers, and everything fell apart. Intel's own CEO later admitted the company had simply been too ambitious, trying to cram more transistors into that node than made sense, and that overreach caused years of delays. Years. Intel originally expected to ship 10 nanometer chips in 2015. That slipped to 2018. Then it slipped again to, and I'm not making this up, quote, holidays 2020. Imagine ordering a pizza and the guy on the phone says it'll be ready in 20 minutes. Then 2 hours later says, okay, actually holidays. That's Intel's roadmap for half a decade. And it's not like the competition just sat around eating snacks waiting for Intel to figure it out. While Intel was stuck spinning its wheels, a company called TSMC in Taiwan, which basically builds chips for other companies, was quietly getting really, really good. TSMC embraced a manufacturing technology called EUV earlier and more aggressively than Intel did, which let it stabilize newer, smaller chip processes while Intel was still fighting fires on its older ones. So now imagine 2 runners in a race. One runner has been in first place for 30 years and just stops to tie his shoe for 5 years. The other runner just keeps jogging past. That's TSMC versus Intel through the 2000s and 10s. And here's the part that really stings. Companies like AMD, Intel's oldest rival, used to also build their own chips in their own factories, just like Intel did. But AMD made a bet, split off its manufacturing, and started paying TSMC to build its chips instead. People made fun of AMD for that at the time, calling it a sign of weakness. Over time, it turned into AMD's biggest strength. because it let AMD ride TSMC's better and better manufacturing while Intel was stuck with its own broken factories. Even Apple, Intel's old ice cream truck customer for laptop chips, eventually dumped Intel and moved to chips made by, you guessed it, TSMC. So by the end of this chapter, Intel had gone from "we make the best chips on earth, full stop," to "please give us a few more years, we promise 7 nanometer is coming." Rough sentence to have to say out loud in an earnings call. Chapter 3. The party they weren't invited to. Okay, so here's where it gets almost unfair. While Intel was busy trying to dig itself out of the manufacturing hole, a completely different kind of chip started taking over the tech world. The kind used to train AI, and the company sitting right there with the best AI chips already built was Nvidia, not Intel. Think of it like this. Everyone spent years arguing about who makes the best regular oven. Meanwhile, someone quietly invented the air fryer, and it turns out everybody suddenly wants an air fryer. And the guy who makes the best air fryer becomes the richest guy on the block. Intel was still elbow deep in oven repairs. Nvidia had the air fryer. This wasn't a small miss either. Intel's stock got hit so hard by all of this that in November 2024, it was actually removed from the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and Nvidia took its spot, with the people running that index straight up saying Nvidia was now more representative of the chip industry than Intel was. Think about how brutal that sentence is if you're Intel. You built the entire industry, and now you're getting kicked out of the club because someone else is doing your job better. A month later, in December 2024, Intel's CEO, Pat Gelsinger, was forced out by the company's own board, who basically said, okay, we need somebody else to try and fix this. Chapter 4. Okay, but is this actually a comeback story? So here's where I have to be fair to Intel, because this part is genuinely wild. In March 2025, a new CEO named Lip-Bu Tan took over, restructured the company, and pulled in some serious strategic investment from Nvidia of all people, plus the US government and SoftBank, and for a while, it actually seemed to be working. Like really working. Intel's stock rocketed up something like 278% in just the first half of 2026. That's not a typo, that's a company basically nearly quadrupling in value in 6 months on hopes that its newest manufacturing process called 18A was finally going to work and put Intel back in the race. But, and you knew there was a but coming, the story took a hard turn. Reports started circulating that the yields on that new 18A process, meaning the percentage of usable working chips coming off each production run, weren't going to hit profitable levels until late 2026 at the earliest. And when a chip company can't get good yields, every single chip it makes on that line is basically losing money instead of making it. Combine that with AMD reportedly taking the lead in data center chip revenue for the first time ever, and investors freaked out. The stock fell over a quarter from its all-time high in a matter of days, wiping out a huge chunk of that comeback rally almost overnight. So where does that leave things right now, as of today? Genuinely up in the air. Intel's next real report card is its Q2 earnings expected around July 23rd, 2026, which is basically the moment where the company either shows a real progress on those chip yields or confirms everyone's worst fears and pushes the timeline even further out. So here's the actual 5-year-old summary of the whole saga. Intel said no to a small popsicle stand that became a candy empire. Intel tripped over its own shoelaces for half a decade while its competitor kept jogging. Intel missed the AI party entirely and watched someone else become the guest of honor. And now, Intel is trying to sprint back into the race with a brand new pair of shoes. And honestly, nobody, not even the people running the company, seems totally sure yet if those shoes actually fit. What do you guys think? Is this an actual comeback, or is Intel just having one good year before the next stumble? I'd love to hear your theory in the comments, especially if you've been watching this play out longer than I have, because this is one of those stories that's genuinely still being written in real time. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this one, smash that like button, subscribe, and go check out our other video. breaking down how Nvidia basically became the most valuable company on the planet, almost by accident. History's weird like that.